I don't know whether this is going to be a depressing one or not. Ben's with me again. Before we start, I just want to quickly mention that actually, as coincidence would have it, at the time of recording, it's the 16-year anniversary of since 9/11 happened. And obviously, in a world that's currently inhabited a lot of terrorism, I think it just sends chills down my spine, really, at the fact that this is, call me wrong, I don't know much about knowledge about terrorist attacks these days, but I think this is obviously one of the most well-known ones, so rest in peace to all the victims. He ain't forgotten. So with that said, let's move on to the football. So Ben, are you any less depressed than what you seemed to me after the game on Saturday?
I suppose on reflection, it's probably what we deserve. To be honest, I've kind of stopped becoming as affected with Sunderland now, because you kind of can prepare yourself for what's going to come. You can't see it picking up anytime soon, really, can you?
No, not at the rate we're going at the minute. Unfortunately, I can't prevent myself from getting too affected by Sunderland. In a way, I don't know about you, I was quite wary of the Sheffield United game, because I felt like, and I can't remember who mentioned it, but someone said that Sheffield United are a team that's come up from League One that are used to winning. We're not used to winning, to say the least. We're used to getting hammered every week, so I probably should have bared that in mind going into the game, but I felt like they'd be up for it, and the onus for me was on us as to whether we'd be just as up for it. And what do you think? Do you think I'm being a bit harsh by saying I didn't feel our boys were as up for it as what I felt they could have been, or am I just talking shite?
Certainly from what you're saying just there, Sheffield United certainly had the momentum coming up. They've had a good start. We've come down. We've had a pretty poor start. So yeah, they'll have come into the game a lot more confident. They had a set squad, that didn't have many new additions in from the transfer window, whereas we did. They just looked a lot more solid than us in knowing what they were going to play. I don't know if you thought that, but I couldn't really make out what strategy Sunderland had in the game, if I'm honest. I didn't see any sign of a strategy.
No, neither could I. I didn't understand what... I was talking with Pete, so Pete's not able to make it on here today, by the way, but I was sitting with him at the game, and we were trying to debate what the formation was. When I saw the team, I thought, is it going to be a 4-3-3, a 4-2-3-1, or are they... but in the end, it looked like we were attempting to play with wing-backs, which, safe to say, went fantastically well, didn't it?
Yeah, especially on the side of...
Galloway.
Yes.
Galloway.
He was a bit cautious to go past the halfway line, if I'm honest, at times.
Well, Pete made a point. I think he mentioned it to us in the pub after the game, and I think we're trying to expand on this a little bit. Do you think it was a case that Galloway just went forward, but was afraid to go forward too much because he thought our midfielders would lose the ball, and instantly we'd get caught out, and he'd probably get the blame for it?
I think his confidence is shot, if I'm totally honest. You can even see when he's got the ball, he takes far too many touches. He's overthinking what he's going to do with the ball all the time. And if I'm honest, it certainly right. If I was Ronald Koeman, then I'd be looking at Galloway playing at Sunderland. I'd bring him back, because I wouldn't want him playing at Sunderland in front of a crowd where his confidence is being shot. It really is. I can't doubt that somewhere in Galloway is a good footballer, because he wouldn't have made it in the Premier League if he wasn't. And for me, it's another player that Sunderland have ruined. I can't expect for a minute that he's not a good football player.
I don't know. When you mention the fact that it's a player
teams in the Premier League.
When you mention the fact there's a player that we've ruined already, does that not say a lot though? When there's like 6 games into the season, we've already ruined a young prospect. If you can call Galloway that.
It's something at the core of the club. There really is. It just filters down, because we're like, I'm going off a bit topic here, but when the full-time whistle went out, there was a few people behind me criticising Grayson, and I just thought, he's been here 5-6 games. How can you criticise him for what's there? And we've ruined the managers, Martin O'Neill. I'm going off topic anyway, sorry, but
that's fine.
Just something to kind of reflect on, really.
I don't know. I think that we obviously we've had for some time a very bad reputation of ruining players and managers, and capable ones, I might add, more than capable ones that have certainly come through at the stadium. Galloway obviously mentioned. You mentioned Grayson. I think one area where I would criticise Grayson. I don't think Grayson's anyone who wants Grayson out, by the way, I think is talking bollocks. But I do at the same time have to question his reasoning in consistently playing with Gallo. I mean, it might be because we didn't have any other options, but we had Billy Jones, who a half-fit Billy Jones is infinitely better at the moment for me than a fully fit Galloway. Because I think with Jones, I understand Pete's point that he doesn't stop crosses, but it's not the only job of a fullback solely to stop crosses. You have to intercept, you have to clear the ball, you have to have a lot. You basically a positional sense as well. I think Billy Jones does do those things. Wouldn't say good, but does them certainly in an adequate sense for the championship. And I think he'd be a lot more solid than what Galloway would be. So I don't know. I don't know whether Grayson could have stuck with that. I mean, he took Galloway off at half time. I don't know whether that was just because of injuries or was forced his hand. But O'Shea, I mean, he was the one who got caught on, and he got caught out by Is it Davidson, the scorer for Sheffield United? Is it Clayton Davidson? I think
it was Donaldson.
Donaldson. Sorry, Sheffield United fans, if you're watching this, that was poor on my part. But John O'Shea was the one who got caught out for the second goal. So, well, anyway, move on from Galloway. I want to briefly talk about the other player that actually had that. Well, there's two other players I want to talk about quickly. The first one, well, while we're on the subject of defenders, Kone. What did you think about the idea of him being made captain? Because that, I've got to be honest, considering that he's pretty much all but said or expressed his desire somewhat that he wants to leave Sunderland, I struggle to see why Kone should have been made captain, to be honest. I think he could have just given it to Honeyman at this point, even though I don't rate Honeyman at all. But the point is, I don't know whether Kone's the right personality to be made captain, especially we're in a torrid time at the moment as it is anyway.
Look, you look at the squad as a whole, and we don't have any leaders in that team. I'm looking at the names now, and I'd struggle to give the captaincy to anyone on that team because there's no one there who will step up and really give the role for Sunderland at the moment, if I'm being honest. But Grayson must see something in training. You know, we don't see the training, unfortunately. And obviously, maybe now the transfer window's closed, he's had discussions with Kone in the last week or so. And maybe, just maybe, Kone has been given the captain's armband to give him a lift. You know,
possibly,
because that's my thinking behind it.
I don't know. I question the decision, but obviously, as you say, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes in training, but that's also part of the problem that we don't know. I don't know. That's an interesting one. I think without Cattermole, I think Saturday proved for me that Cattermole's a huge influence on the team, and I think when we're without him, we just look completely lost. We didn't know. I don't think any of the players knew what their game plan was. I didn't think they knew how to distribute a couple of passes together. The other player I wanted to talk about, and people around me at the game will have heard me mention him thousands of times. I apologise, and I'm not trying to make him a scapegoat, but James Vaughan. I'm sorry, he's just, oh my god. I hope to God he proved me wrong, but at the minute I don't see anything that makes me believe he's going to pull up any trees this season, because James Vaughan, I thought when he first came in, I thought, right, he might be someone who could hold the ball up, maybe sort of take pressure off players when we're leading a game, but I just look at him and I just think, he's not that physical for me. He can't hold the ball up. His passing and touching is atrocious, and he doesn't score any goals. So I suppose it's what you get when you pay $500K for him. But I don't know what you think about him. I've just please prove me wrong, but I don't see it.
I mean, the first 10-15 minutes, he got a few flick-ons towards grabbing. But after that, I can't remember Vaughan doing too much other than chasing shadows for the rest of the game. And grabbing, for me, wasn't very good either on Saturday. He didn't really turn the defenders, didn't make the ball stick. But both of them, for me, could have easily came off if we had more options on the bench, if I'm being honest. But certainly, Vaughan, I think, I don't think he's up to championship standard, is he, Michael?
Not really.
Certainly in the games I've watched. Well, I've watched all the games, unfortunately. But I think the problem with Vaughan is he's always got his back to goal, so he's never going to be a player who scores goals, is he? I mean, he had that chance in the first half where, for the life of me, I don't know why, scissor kicked it wide just at the end of the first half. He should have just brought the ball down, and he would have had loads of time because there was no defenders between them. You know, but he's the type of player he always wants to try almost too hard to do things.
That's a fair assessment.
He tries too hard at times instead of just doing the simple things correctly.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I mean, don't get me wrong. Work rate is one thing I can't really fault of Vaughan on a personal level. But I just don't. But ultimately, as a striker, you're there to score goals, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Maybe Vaughan will come in handy in League One next season. I don't know. But as far as we'll get onto that a bit later. But I don't see it from him really. Hopefully,
I mean, work rate's all great, Michael, and everything else. But for me, conserve your energy, because he was just chasing shadows. So what's the point of running around like a headless chicken?
That's true.
That's what he was doing. That's what he was doing on Saturday. Ultimately,
that's ultimately what a lot of them were doing. To be fair,
the back four of Sheffield United were laughing at Vaughan because
not surprised.
I've never had such an easy afternoon.
To be honest, that scissor kick he tried, I was amazed he even got a shot away. To be honest, I was expecting him to just miscontrol it and then for the ball to get cleared. Well, mentioned.
I'm surprised our midfielders even found him in the box, if I'm being totally honest.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll move on to that because I want to talk about the application and alleged attitude of the squad going into the game. Now, for me, the only player, I mean, you may disagree with me, and I think I've seen a few people say he was average, but for me, and while on a general context he probably was average, but he was the only player that was trying to make anything happen, was Johnny Williams. That's sort of, so I mean, Johnny Williams was one that at least I felt sorry for him actually, because I felt he was trying to do 2 or 3 players worth of work on his own, because I felt like Honeyman, I think, was trying, but he wasn't offering too much. I felt like Rodwell was just Rodwell, and Dong, I felt like was running around all over the place, but there wasn't that much composure from him. So I mean, I don't know where to start with it. I mean, what annoys me is that, and I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, Sheffield United was shit. Don't get us wrong, they pressed Sunderland. They did what we should have done. Pressed us constantly. They were in our faces. The instant we got the ball, they bullied us off the ball, which I think is just ridiculous. But they pressed us, counter-attacked us very well, but they still weren't any good. They gave away throw-ins quite a few times. They miscontrolled touches and passes as much as we did, and that's depressing to me if we've lost to a team like that. And as well, Sheffield United have started well. They were still in League One last year. Did well, but were still in a third tier last season. So, I don't know, was the attitude not there? Was the application not there? I don't know, what was the problem?
Certainly the application wasn't there in the midfield because, like you say, and I've made a point of this after the game as well, Sheffield United hunted down in packs. When Sunderland had the ball, there was at least 2 or 3 Sheffield United players putting pressure on the Sunderland player who had the ball. And ultimately it worked because we can't pass to save our lives, if I'm being totally honest, and that showed on Saturday. Couldn't put more than 4, frequent passes together. Just running through the midfield like yourself. Williams, yes, he was a bright spark for me. What he probably was the most capable player of the Sunderland side on Saturday. He was almost 2 or 3 phases ahead of the game than our whole midfield was. So he was thinking about doing things that wasn't even going to happen with the players he's playing with. Do you know what I mean? He was making runs.
Yeah.
He was looking for people, but they just weren't there.
I mean, he was trying to cross the ball at the box, and yeah, it didn't come to anything. But at least he was being forward thinking. At least he was trying to put the ball in the box, and at least trying to have something happen. But whereas the rest of them, Pete said before the game, and I fully agree with him. As much as I constantly bang the drum about Rodwell, for example, as much as I constantly said to him, look, he'll come good, I've lost patience with him now. Because even though he scored at that point, most of the stadium, there was probably barely any fans at that point to see it. There's no excuse for him not to perform at this level. There really isn't. And because the majority of the players that he comes up against will be inferior to him, I'm convinced of it. Most of them anyway. Certainly in midfield senses. And I'm just starting to wonder, has he got the stomach for it now? I mean, the best thing for me he did all game was when he tried, and this is even a good thing, it was just funny, was when he tried to get the ball, and then I think he slipped and then landed on his arse. that was the best thing Rodwell did all day, because he contributed nothing on a football sense.
Rodwell's, he's never been fit since he's come to Sunderland. He hasn't.
No, you're right.
He's always looked so slow. His feet's never in the right position. He never moves like a footballer, if I'm honest. So, to be fair, I'd drop Rodwell for Tuesday. And Dong, I thought Ndong was being his usual self. He was winning the ball back, but he wasn't doing anything with the ball.
Mm.
You know, he wasn't distributing it properly. And Honeyman, for me, Honeyman's just not good enough. Even for the championship level, I don't think he's good enough.
No.
And I think if we had a bigger squad depth, I think he would probably be sent out on loan, as would Gooch. I don't think Gooch is good enough. And I'll probably get a lot of stick for this, since, you know, they've come through the academy, the local lads and all, etc. And, you know, they wear the heart on the sleeve. But let's face it, if the players aren't good enough to be in the championship, there's only one way we're heading, and that's League One.
Well, at least they'll be good enough for that league, hopefully. Might as well start preparing for it.
I think if we sent them to a League One team on loan, I think they'd cherish. I think they'd do absolutely fantastic.
It might be the case then.
And they'd come back to us a better player, more experienced.
Possibly. It just depends. There might. Someone, I've heard it on other Sunderland podcasts before. I've heard it mentioned countless times. The fact that you look at the legs of a story, you look at Honeyman, you look at Gooch, you look at Josh Meyer, however you pronounce the name again, for example. You look at those players and think, well, it's all well and good playing under 23 football, but ultimately you have to go out and experience a man's game. You have to go out and experience getting bullied, pushed, tackled, you know, really roughed up. Because the Football League, I mean, the Premier League, I don't think you get it as much, but I think certainly in the Championship, probably in the lower league, in the Football League, it's brutal. It's really brutal. It's a lot more physical. People up for a battle, and I think they need to experience that. So maybe they'll come back better players. But I don't know.
There was times, Michael, on Saturday that Honeyman was running shoulder to shoulder against the fullbacks of Sheffield United, and they were just honestly just putting their hand on him and just pushing him out the way.
Yeah, that was a huge other problem I saw. We kept not just Honeyman, to be fair, but a lot of the times we kept getting bullied off the ball. We kept getting bullied off the ball every time, and I was losing me cool. Every time I was just thinking, well, come on, you know, we know you're not the best footballers in the world. We know that you're not really that good, but you know, at least stand up and be counted for it. At least stand up and say, right, come on then. You know, I might not be very good, but at least I'm going to give me all here. Make sure you don't brush me off the ball. Galloway, I mean, again, maybe he's being a scapegoat now, but there was at least 3 or 4 occasions where I counted where he got doubled upon and got pushed off the ball so easily and just looked completely out of position. But it's not just him, you know, and Ndong did a couple of times. So I'm just thinking to myself, are we just too nice? Are we just too nice to everybody else? Or are we just not or is it just simply that we're going to take time to get used to the Championship in that sense?
I think they're scared, Michael. I really do. If I'm going out on a football field, I want to be head and shoulders above my opposite in the first tackle. And you watch the first tackle Ndong puts in, he gets knocked off the ball. The first tackle Rodwell puts in, he gets knocked off the ball.
That's not surprising.
That's game over already. Because the Sheffield United midfielders know they've got the edge on them already. It happens far too often in our team.
That's what I mean. And I think we watched the first half of Sheffield Wednesday and Nott Forest, and while I stand by what I say that I think the Championship in quality is a shit league, hence why we'll fit right in, but it's a shit league. It's competitive, but it's shite. But I looked at that game and I thought that both of these teams are going for it. They're going for it. They're not. I mean, Nottingham Forest. I mean, I know Nottingham Forest. I mean, obviously we've got them tomorrow. They ultimately got beat. But one thing I was impressed by them in the first half, although I didn't watch the second, was the fact they didn't just lie down and say, "No, we're not taking a defeat. We're going to go and try and get back in the game here." And everyone just in that game just stood up and was counted for each other. Whereas our players just seemed like the first time we get any sort of adversary, or the first time we get sort of like real challenge in terms of being physical or being up, being proper fighter, we just seem to fall at the first hurdle. Now, surely, you do your research going into the Championship as a player, you should know you're going to need to be up for it, and that's one of the things that was depressing most about Saturday. Not because necessarily that I did feel to some extent we weren't as up for it. I mean, the fact is, whether you could say we were up for it or not is debatable. I didn't think we were anywhere near as up for it as Sheffield United were, but and I think you may agree with me on this. Barnsley, although we got beat 3-0 at Barnsley, Saturday was worse, because at least Barnsley, we had a 30-minute spell before Barnsley scored where we were actually thinking, yeah, we're all right here. Yeah, missing the final third, missing the killer instinct where we can score, but we're creating chances at least. At least we actually, we had at least two good chances before Barnsley scored, and before Barnsley scored, I might add, we were barely being threatened. Saturday, correct me if I'm wrong here, but did we create not even just a clear-cut one, did we create a single chance before, obviously, the consolation goal? Did we create a single chance all game?
Apart from the scissor kick from Vaughan.
I forgot that.
I honestly can't remember the Sheffield United keeper doing anything.
That's what I mean. I can never remember him having a save to make.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, the match stats show that we had one shot on target.
And I'm guessing that was
would have been the goal.
Yeah, I was going to say that would have been the goal, wouldn't it? How many did Sheffield United have?
They had 5. So that shows you, you know.
Yeah. Well. Okay then. Well, the next point I'll make then is, okay, right. Okay, right. Well, we haven't talked about the new boys yet. And obviously, this was 2 of them made their first starts. It was Mark Wilson and Johnny Williams, and Callum McManaman came on in the second half when Vaughan was substituted. So, what did you think about the new boys? How did you think any of them did? Well, obviously, we touched on Williams already, so we won't mention him too much. I think there's promise from Williams. I think Mark Wilson, I've got to be honest, I thought he was at fault for the first goal. I felt, even though that Reuter probably shouldn't have been beaten by Donaldson's first goal, I still felt that Wilson should have tried a bit harder to stop the shot in the first place, because the amount of times he just kept getting done, kept getting turned, and it's like, go on, mate, have a shot, have a dig at our goal, go on. You know, it was really getting on my nerves. And I could just see when Donaldson was toying with him, like, this is going to be a goal here if he's not careful.
Donaldson had him in a very tricky position, didn't he? Because Wilson didn't have any coverage down the left-hand side with Galloway. I don't know where the hell he was.
Yeah, that's true. That might be a factor, actually.
But, yeah, Wilson maybe should have closed him down a bit quicker instead of letting him get on his left foot and turning, which is his favourite foot on, I believe, his left foot.
It's natural we let that happen then, isn't it?
Yeah. But, I mean, throughout the game, I was pretty impressed with Wilson. Apart from that, I don't think he really did much wrong, if I'm being honest. I thought he made a few good tackles that got the fans out of their seats, which was probably the only thing that got me out of my seat on Saturday, if I'm being honest. Moving on to McManaman when he came on, to be honest, I can't remember really him doing much, if I'm honest, apart from his little burst down the wing. He put a great ball in and no one was in the box. Story of our season. But I can't judge McManaman because he came on at he came on at a point where I think the game was already lost, if I'm honest.
I think to be fair with McManaman, yeah, I mean ultimately no one did much, but I think McManaman, I'd instantly have more confidence if we were playing, for example, we were playing a 4-3-3, or if we were playing any formation. I'd feel when Vaughan came off, McManaman came on, I instantly felt more hopeful something was going to happen. I thought McManaman was at least attempting, like Williams, not to the extent, but I thought he was trying to create something. So I'm hoping going forward that he adds something. They add something in the creative side of things. Personally, I thought he did all right, but obviously, as you said, the game was already done by that point. It was just gone.
I mean, I've been very critical of us bringing them 3 signings in, as I was probably on the last podcast I think we did. But I mean, apart from Wilson not closing Donaldson down, and I think Williams gave his all. To be honest, I don't think Williams could have done a lot more with who he had playing around him. I think obviously when we get Catmull back in, a little bit of protection for Williams to go and do what he does. That'll be much better for him, and hopefully we'll start seeing the results come from there. But yeah, just looking on the bench, Michael, something I want to bring up, our substitutions. I really think Grayson's left between a rock and a hard place with who to even bring on, if I'm honest. We had Steele on the bench, Jones, McManaman, O'Shea, Matthews, Gibson and Gooch.
Doesn't scream you with much confidence, does it?
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't, And if I'm honest, I would have probably started with Gibson instead of Rodwell.
I think at least with Gibson you probably have more chance of him actually popping up with a shot now and again, wouldn't you?
I think Gibson's just a lot more controlled in what he does. He's a lot more assured. I don't panic when Gibson's got the ball the way I do when Rodwell picks it up.
It's because you know he's going to have it for 2 seconds and then just gives it away again, don't you?
Well,
you just expect it.
Yeah.
Well, look, the next point I kind of want to go for then is, you and me have debated before on previous podcasts about whether the squad we've got now is good enough to compete in the Championship. Now, it depends on what your definition of competing in the Championship is. It depends on what your expectations are. I think my definition of competing in the Championship is, for Sunderland, should be to at least mount a top 6 promotion challenge. And I'm starting to think at this point we just don't have it. Although I did think Pete made a very good point where Catmull and Dong, McGeady and McNair, not so sure about McNair, but he was doing well before he got injured. But the rest of them to come back could provide a boost. but it still doesn't address the problem that we just, at the minute, we haven't got a goal scorer. Is this squad, though, I mean, I'll ask you this then, do you think that this sort of ties into another point, do you think the squad's definitely good enough to solidify us in the Championship?
At the moment, no, because we can't score goals. You're not going to get anywhere without scoring goals, Michael. And I think we're in a real bad place at the moment because we just don't score enough, and we don't capitalise on our, when we're ahead of the game. First 15, 20 minutes against Derby at the start of the season, we didn't capitalise on it, and it's been a running theme throughout especially all of the home games. When you think Leeds, we should have scored, didn't, conceded. Barnsley, we didn't, we then conceded. It's
a familiar pattern of all of them. Sorry to interrupt. It's a familiar pattern with all of them, apart from Norwich and Sheffield United, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Apart from those two games, every game we've started well, and then we either go in front and we don't kill the game off, or we concede first.
Yeah, and also I think our team are playing like individuals, not playing as a team. I'm looking at Sheffield United here, and they're in the top 6 now, and you're thinking there's no real, amazing players in their team. They're just all working as a team. They've all got belief in each other, where I don't believe Sunderland have belief in each other, if I'm honest.
That's also...
I just think there's a hangover looming from last season, and people can call us negative. They have before in the comments. I'm quite happy to take that, but I just think it's a realistic view. And I think anyone who thinks our team actually have belief in each other, they're kidding themselves on. They really are.
At the moment, yeah. At the moment,
yeah.
I think they are. I just don't think... But this is the thing, though, with the whole belief argument, though, that we obviously had a really, really shit season last year, and we obviously, well, in my opinion, heavily underperformed as a squad and with the manager as a whole. Yeah, Moyes has to take blame for that. But, you look at the mental belief side of things, this shouldn't be following us into the Championship, because we should be looking, right, come on, a lot of these teams, although they'll be up for a fight, if we want it as much as they do, we will win games. Even the squad we've got now, I believe, would win a lot of games against the likes of your Burtons, your Boltons, your Millwalls, your... Who else is there that's, your Brentfords and people like that? If we're struggling to stay in the Championship, if we got, say for example, we got relegated again, that's just the biggest disaster, I think, in Sunderland's history. And that's a big statement, considering I don't know much about Sunderland, because probably in the 3rd division under McMenemy, but certainly since the 21st century started, or since the Premier League was formed, for example, going down to League One, I think, would be the biggest failure of this football club. It really would be. And
you can't disagree with that.
And I think this is another question I kind of want to bring up is, do we now just kind of hope we don't plummet through the leagues this season and kind of write this season off? There's 40 games still left to play. There's plenty of time, but right now at the minute, I've written off top 2. I think at this point I'm starting to write off top 6. Is it just a case where we just write the season off, consolidate, and just...
No, not for me. I don't think you write the season off after 6 games. Obviously, 40 games left, and I'm starting to sound like Simon Grayson here.
The Grayson effect.
Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And when we were here with Keane, we lost our first 5 games. So I'm not worried as much as I probably should be a little, but...
That's a lot coming from you, by the way, considering that you're the one that's perceived to be the most negative.
I just like mentioned James XO. I'm not worried. There's your answer.
There's your shout out, James.
But yeah, if we're not in a better position by Christmas, I think that's when the alarm bells will certainly be going off.
That's fair enough.
But I've always said, this is a 3-year job. It's rebuilding. It's not stabilisation. It's rebuilding. It's going to take a long time. And certainly, while Short owns the club, we're not going to,
we're not going to pull up any trees when he owns, does it?
Yeah, we're not going to have the financial backing to do that. And so the key for me is for him to sell the club, and then hopefully things start turning around. But for me, Grayson's got a real hard job on there, and he knows that. And I believe in Grayson to actually turn us round, but it'll not happen this season. I don't think that we'll transform the club this season. Yes, we might get close to the playoffs if it all turns out well, but I don't think that'll be a turning around of the club as a whole. And I think that's what we need. We need a good 3 years.
Yeah, I think that's a fair enough argument. I think by the end of I would certainly think that we need to be promoted into the Premier League by the end of the second or third year. But I mean, as far to me, I don't know. I want to say I'm writing this season off, but I think certainly we need. First of all, we need to make sure we don't plummet down the divisions again, because that's happened to Portsmouth, Blackburn, Wolves. It's happened to quite a few clubs that are pretty well named clubs. I still believe Sunderland are bigger than all those clubs, but it doesn't mean we're not going to falter down the leagues if we're not careful. I think with Grayson we do have the manager to make sure we stay in the Championship at least, but ultimately that shouldn't be Sunderland's aim. That shouldn't be what we aim to do. I mean, Bain himself obviously said, although it's probably a PR thing, I don't know, that our aim is to get promoted. But at the minute, that doesn't look very likely. And again, we mentioned Bain a lot on a couple of, I think it was on the last podcast or a couple of podcasts ago, that I've seen people say that Bain's job. I mean, I heard someone say, apparently one person said Bain's job apparently is to not spend money, and I'm not going to.
I suppose that only filters down from Ellis Short though for the money that.
But exactly. So I mean, if people are going to go by this argument that Bain's job's not to spend money, well then why? What's the reason that his job's not to spend money? The debt. So that's the reason for it, and it's about time people got that into their heads. I mean, we won't go into Bain much again because we mentioned that a lot last time, but I did feel really sorry that Bain gets a lot of the stick, and I'll tell you who else gets a lot of stick: the people that run the PR, because I know them, because I did an internship, like a work experience thing at the club a couple of years ago. I know the main two guys that do it. I know the main guys that do it, and I think everything that they do at the minute, they just can't do anything right. I'll tell you one thing I will mention on the PR side of things. I want to get your thoughts on. What do you think of your thoughts on the timing to unveil the third kit, which was I think at half time?
I just think, as myself working in an industry like that, I just think it was absolute suicide. If I'm totally honest, Michael.
Yeah.
I mean, the club, the fans were unhappy. There was booing at half time, which was rightly serviced. I wouldn't normally boo at half time, but I did on Saturday, so I thought it was warranted. But yeah, it's almost like saying we've served you up some shit. Come and buy some more. If I'm totally honest.
I like that advertisement.
And to be honest, the club going along the lines of this new kit was inspired by the pit workers. Well, we are the pits at the minute. If I'm totally honest.
At the minute, this club might as well go down the mine shaft where it belongs.
And I think whoever made that decision is absolutely crazy.
I think to be fair as well, you don't. I mean, that would obviously have been pre-planned before the Sheffield United game, and
it doesn't take much to pull it though, Michael. I've worked on projects when things have been pulled because of external issues have surfaced. And a club like Sunderland, for me, their PR should have pulled that. I don't care whether they pulled it as soon as we went 1-0 down, but they should have known that wouldn't have went down well with the fans. If I'm being totally honest, and I'm being brutal now because I've worked in that industry. I know how it works.
Fair enough then. Well, that's the case. That is. Oh, this club can't do anything right at the minute, can it? It just doesn't feel like it.
You can, as a fan, you look at what they've served us up. We haven't won since December at home, and the people buying season cards like yourself, and you're thinking, well, give us something to cheer about. And the club don't give Sunderland fans anything extra, really. You see Stoke fans getting free away travel. We don't get that.
Exactly.
Even the quiz that was on at the stadium like the other day. I know I'm going off topic, but we still had to put money towards that.
See, I went to the quiz.
Maybe season card holders could have got in free.
Yeah, it's a nice gesture.
Something, a gesture just to say thank you for your continued support.
See, that the one thing I thought was very, very telling was the fact that Kevin Ball, because I was at the quiz, and I wouldn't say I'm on first name terms with Kevin Ball or anything, but I have met him a couple of times. I interviewed him for University Project. I think he's a quality lad. I think he's funny. I think he's down to earth. I think he tells it as it is. I think that what Kevin said, and I think one of the questions that was sent to him and the former players was, is there an identity at the club, not just on the pitch, but as a club? And at the minute, we've lost it. We've completely lost what the identity is meant to be. Now, obviously, a few games ago, you would have said the identity was be a bit direct, be a bit hard to beat, and sort of just be solid. And up to the Leeds game, I would say that was certainly valid. But since then, we've seemed to lose it. The other question I wanted to talk about, the last point, there's two more points I want to bring up before we finish. The first one, fans. Now, I don't think we've really touched on this debate a lot. Over the years, particularly since the start of last season, I think, probably, over the last couple of years, we've had a lot of instances where a lot of other fans basically go on one about how the fact Sunderland fans leave early, about the fact that there's obviously we barely made. I think we got under 30,000 at the weekend. It was up at 20. I think it was like 29,000, something like that. The weekend. What do you think about that? Because I think that's quite damaging. Because Pete I think summed it up perfectly. It's not because our supporters are shit. Even at home, I'd go as far to say that. I don't think it's because I think it's the players make us look bad.
Well, as fans, you vote with your feet, don't you? At the moment, obviously there's a lot of people not turning up to the games, which I really can't.
You can't blame them for it, can you?
I can't blame them. I can't blame them for not coming because it's like you go into a shop, you pay your £25, you get nothing for it, and that's
yeah, and you won't keep paying it, would you?
Like, you're paying for torture every Saturday, and to be honest, I don't even look forward to going to the match now. I went to the match on Saturday thinking not again. And it'll not take long before it'll start getting even lower because people are just becoming sick, and it's a spiral of 3 or 4 years when Sunderland fans have been given absolutely nothing backstage in the light, and I really can't blame Sunderland fans for not turning up. And I'm leaving early. I left early on Saturday as soon as the second goal went in. This is how bad it's got, Michael. Two years ago, I would have left at 4-0. Last year I was leaving at 3-0. This season I'm leaving at 2-0. Because I just know they're not going to come back.
Exactly. And I left. I don't think I left as soon as the second one went in, but I left about the 80th minute. I just thought, well, there's just no. I had one of my other friends called Daniel. I'll give him a shout out on here. And I was sitting with him, and I pretty much left him on his own. I felt sorry for him. But I was like, Dan, I'm leaving you on your own. I'm sorry, but I can't sit and watch this. I'm sorry. I can't. I can't sit and watch us get bullied by an average Sheffield United side who basically beat us, deserved to beat us, but beat us purely because they were wanting it more than us. So
everyone's entitled to their opinion, at the end of the day. And, like ourselves and other podcasts, we're all entitled to their opinion. And, I think some of us have just had enough, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. After we saw each other, after we parted ways on Saturday, me and Pete went to meet up with another friend. Obviously, I think you've met Kevin before, so I'll give Kevin Charlton another shout out on here. And me, Pete, and Kevin had a huge debate on Saturday evening, and it was about how Kevin is of the opinion that, and that's fair enough, I can understand where he's coming from when he says this, but he was of the opinion that fans that don't go when things are going bad aren't true fans. Now, to a point, a few years ago, I'd have said, yeah, fine, valid argument, can't argue with it. But considering we've had years of dog shit, considering we've had years of capitulating against equally as shit teams, I'm sorry, we've been hammered off equally bad teams, and a majority of the games that we've heavily lost is because the team hasn't put the application, or even go as far to say the team hasn't put the effort in, and the fans pay a lot of money to go down and see them, especially, our fans, I think, are very good, considering what the dross they've had to suffer and watch. And especially for last season, when Sunderland fans bought their season cards for last season and renewed them, it was when Allardyce was still here. It was of the prospects that finally we'd stop being in relegation battles over and over again, because that's not where we should be as a club. And what did we get treated to? What did we get served up last season? Probably the worst attempt, and I use that term loosely, in staying up as possible. A manager who couldn't be bothered to motivate the players, players that didn't think of the fans, and I hate to say it this way, but think of Bradley Lowry. That should have been more than enough motivation for them to perform last season. And then it's carried on to this season. So how fans can get not true fans. I'm sorry, Kevin. I really like you. I think we do have good banter, but I'm sorry, I heavily disagree with that argument. I think fans have just had enough, and I don't think they should be chastised for it. Whether not turning up or leaving early, that's the only way you're going to make your voice heard and say you're not happy.
No, I respect Kevin's point of view. Everyone's entitled to a point of view. Kevin's a good lad. Spoken him a few times.
Yeah, he is. I like him.
My own personal opinion is, people go to work all week. They graft hard to get the stadium like on a Saturday, and I can't blame them for not going anymore because surely they've got better things to do on the weekend.
Exactly.
That's all I can say on that.
Exactly. We made the argument. Obviously, we talked about and I'm not saying Sunderland fans should be refunded after Saturday. I'm not saying that. we talked about the heavy debate, and I had a debate with someone on Twitter about refunds. Now, albeit we obviously mentioned, you go for the unpredictability of football. It's part of the game, that's fine. But I just feel like it's about time, after years and years and years of dross. Imagine if Sunderland did offer refunds, for example. And I'm not saying they should, but I'm saying if they did, out of the players' wages, I bet you they'd be motivated to perform better straight away. And that's
of course it would.
That's the huge problem. That's the huge problem right there, because a lot of fans, bad days at the office I accept. Days of lack of effort I don't accept, and we've seen far too much of that. But obviously, I'm not saying for 1 second that the club should refund every time we lose a game, because that's preposterous. But I'm just saying, every time that the players clearly didn't give as much as they could have done, that's when I think you should call it into question, and instantly you try harder. I'm being idealistic, probably, but
all this frustration that the club gives the fans, I think if the communication from the club was more open, and I'm sure there's people who write open letters into the club. I know a lot of Newcastle fans do with theirs. I can't say it would be any different with Sunderland fans, and they probably just get one of the many template letters saying thank you for your continued support, and we're trying to do everything to sort it out. Well, that's not going to wash anymore with me, unfortunately.
Exactly.
I think someone in the club needs to at least come out and be spoken for. And certainly, I used to attend the London branch meetings sometimes, and before the start of last season, David Moyes and Ellis Short and Martin Bain were there. There's nothing like that now. Even if Simon Grayson came out or Martin Bain did, because there's people willing to listen to Martin Bain. At the end of the day, they were willing to listen to what he's got to say. He's just not saying. He's just not communicating it to us.
I can see Grayson coming out and doing it, to be fair, but I couldn't see. The ultimate person we need to hear from is from the top. We need to hear from Ellis Short. He needs to come out and sort of communicate to fans. What's his, if he's not going to sell Sunderland, what's his plan for the club? What's his plan to try and make sure that we're financially stable before he eventually does sell it? What's his plan to try?
I'd actually love to know what the last Sunderland game he actually attended was.
So would I actually, now that you mention it.
And I had a brief argument with a friend in Barnsley about it, and the crowd was singing, "Are you watching Ellis Short?" And I'm thinking, well, is it even worth singing that anymore? But I honestly don't put the effort in, because I don't think he cares. I think he'll sell the club at his earliest convenience.
On his terms as well.
His terms.
People can talk.
I just think we're banging our heads against a brick wall, if I'm totally honest, with Ellis Short.
I'm going to nickname this podcast, if I'm totally honest, because I think we've found Ben's slogan here. But I know where you're coming from. I think with Short, people can claim that, he could have sold Sunderland in the summer, but he didn't sell it because it wasn't in the best interest of Sunderland. That's bollocks. I'm sorry, that's utter bollocks. The only reason he didn't sell it was probably because he didn't get as much money as he wanted, and that's the end of it. There's nothing more to it than that. He probably didn't get as much money as he wanted. Look at the lack of money that's been put in compared to a lot of other clubs over the last 3 or 4 years. So, and I understand the financial and business side of football is without question important. But to me, Ellis Short, and I think a lot of people at the club, like Gary Hutchinson before he left, thank God he's gone, but the people like that just view Sunderland as a business first and a football club second, and it should be the other way around. Business, definitely important, but it shouldn't be at the expense of football.
But it's modern football though, isn't it, Michael? You only have to look at the big teams like Arsenal and Man United, huge brands that are global brands. You go back to the pre-season argument where they're flying teams around the world. It isn't to play the teams on the other side of the world; it's to get that brand exposure.
Exactly, but it doesn't do much for a club like Sunderland. It doesn't do much for Sunderland, does it?
It doesn't. But Sunderland have put that before the football in the last few seasons. Certainly, they have. And that's another problem, like you say.
Can we just have a time when there's not problems, just for once?
I accept that. There's always going to be problems at Sunderland Football Club.
But there's problems and there's problems and then there's problems though. Every club has. Sorry to interrupt again, but every football club has problems. But Sunderland do take the biscuit though, in terms of how many problems there is.
It's peaks and troughs, isn't it? Sunderland are famous for going through peaks and troughs like this. You know, the high point under Reid, and then ever since we've been on a decline. But you know, I'm sure we'll come good in years to come. I can't see it being a total decline like Portsmouth, and we end up getting stuck, you know, in the 4th division. I can't see that happening. But certainly at the moment, Sunderland fans, and I'm going to say this with a loose tongue, right? We need to be patient.
Oh God. No, I agree. I just think there'll be a lot of fans that won't. I just think there'll be a lot of fans that aren't prepared to be, and I can understand why.
No, that's why I say it with a loose tongue. I think we're going to have to be patient.
Yeah.
If I'm honest.
The last we'll say on this is hopefully things get worse before they get. Hopefully it's just things getting worse before they get better. That's probably being really optimistic at the minute, but we will see. Right. The last point we'll touch on. Sheffield United. I've just played them. Forest coming up midweek. Are you going? I won't be because I'll be at work. I won't be because I'll be at work, but I know that obviously you'll be going. Pete will probably be going. I don't know. But oh my God! I mean, again, they got beat on Saturday, but from what I saw them in the first half, they were direct and got forward with pace. So I'm just kind of really worried about this game. And if we don't get an improvement in this game, the atmosphere is going to turn really toxic, isn't it?
Yeah, it will, and you know it'll continue to be toxic until we as a football club start winning football matches, especially at home. And you know, it's a great opportunity for Sunderland to turn it around on Tuesday, because it's not like the fans are coming in, you know, being sat there for 2 weeks thinking, "Oh, what's it going to be like?" It's quick, it's direct, it's straight back into football, and this is the best opportunity to turn the fans around now.
Well, hopefully, come the end of the Forest game, we'll finally have a home win since December. I'll leave you on your own to see how shocking that is. Thanks to Ben for coming on. Thanks for coming on again. It was nice just to get a few things off with chest, even though it was just us rambling on. Well, me rambling on, certainly. So yeah, thanks again, Ben.
No problem, anytime.
Right. Please, Sunderland, don't let we're down again. I can't take another defeat. See you all later.